Hello and good morning. My name is Stephanie, and Stephanie and I did our project on the Holodomor Genocide. I will start off and present the first half of the project, and then Stephanie will present the second half of the project. Okay, so this is our project. It's called Holodomor by Stephanie Gutierrez and Stephanie He. These are the contents, and this is our introduction, which says 90 years ago, Ukraine suffered through one of the worst cases of genocide in history, the Holodomor. Its namesake translates to death inflicted by starvation and was also known as the Great Famine. And this is a picture of villagers having to leave the village in search for food. So, some background about Holodomor is that the Holodomor was a man made famine orchestrated to wage genocide against Ukraine. It took place from 1932 to 1933. It involved Joseph Stalin, the USSR government, and Ukraine. Leading up to the genocide, Stalin perceived Ukraine as a threat due to their autonomous culture. Among other repressions, Stalin initiated the First Five-Year Plan, and this forced Ukraine to relinquish control of their agricultural resources. The USSR would use Ukraine's grain supply to fund their growth into an industrial power. Ukraine farmers, which were the majority of rural Ukrainians, were stripped of their land, livestock, and tools and forced to work on government farms. Some facts and statistics about this genocide were that during the Holodomor, at least 2,505 people were convicted of cannibalism. There were cases of parents murdering their children and consuming their remains as sustenance. And alternatively, there were other cases of parents instructing their children to make use of their remains when they died. The death toll was between 4.5 and 7.5 million at an average rate of 6,000 to 10,000 deaths a day. By the end, it is estimated that 15% to 25.8% of the Ukrainian population died. And this, to me, is the most eye-opening statistic, which was that while Ukrainians starved, food production under the USSR exceeded projections. Butter by 33.2%, oil by 39.5%, meat by 32.5%, preserved foods by 101.9%, and 1.7 million tons of cereal was exported. This is an image of them loading grains onto a carriage, and those grains are going to be exported. So next we're going to define the Holodomor as a genocide. And to give you a little bit of context, the United Nations, which is made up of 193 countries, has yet to recognize the Holodomor as genocide. And to date, only 17 countries recognize the Holodomor as genocide, and those countries include, or are, Argentina, Australia, Canada, Colombia, Czech Republic, Ecuador, Estonia, Georgia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Mexico, Paraguay, Peru, Poland, Ukraine, and the Holy See and Vatican City. Now, as per the UN definition of genocide and the definition that we have established in this course, we would say that the Holodomor does qualify as genocide. We give that opinion because Stalin specifically targeted Ukraine since he perceived them to be a threat, and he deliberately inflicted conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction on a large scale by orchestrating a man-made famine. And this is a picture of some of the victims of the Holodomor. So the victims of the Holodomor were primarily rural farmers and villagers, including women and children, who made up 80% of the Ukrainian population in the 1930s.
Hello everyone, my name is also Stephanie, and I'll be presenting the second part of the Holodomor Genocide project. Alright, so let's talk about the perpetrators of the Holodomor Genocide. The destruction of the Russian monarchy after World War I paved way for the early communist government, the Soviet Union, which was formed by the Bolshevik Revolution. During the early aftermath of the war, Ukraine declared the independence of their nation and fought in a lengthy 3-year battle against the Bolsheviks' Red Army. They did not, however, win. After Ukraine's fall, much of Eastern Europe was also overtaken by the Bolsheviks. To begin, the Holodomor was a man-made famine conducted by the Soviet Union, who controlled the food production and distribution in Soviet Ukraine, Russia. The leader of the Soviets, Joseph Stalin, meticulously planned and executed the famine with his purpose of crushing the Ukrainian people's hopes for a free Ukraine, which was then carried out by the Soviet regime. Now, what were the causes? Stalin, after gaining control over the Communist Party, felt threatened by the cultural autonomy of the Ukrainians expanding greatly by the day. He began by arresting thousands of Ukrainian officials and leading figures such as Ukrainian intellectuals and church leaders. Stalin continued to oppress the Ukrainians by decreeing the 5-year plan, the collectivization of agriculture, to subsidize the USSR and aid in its transformation into an industrial power. The collectivization and persecution of Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, and their crops caused an estimated 3.9 to 5 million deaths from both starvation and execution. Now, one key group that is often overlooked in genocides are the bystanders, those who stand by while the genocide occurs. The bystanders of the Holodomor were largely affected or involved by the Soviet cover-up of the events happening in Ukraine. The Soviets ignored and refused offers from international aid such as the Red Cross, denying that there was a famine present. In addition, Soviet Foreign Minister Maxim Litanov publicly denied the existence of such famine. Citizens were forced into silence for centuries, and Potemkin villages were also prevalent during the famine. These were villages modeled to conceal the famine occurring in Ukraine when foreigners toured the USSR. These villages were painted as prosperous and rich in nature, whilst in the reality, loyal party members and performing artists replaced actual villagers, serving as bystanders who condoned and extended the aid that should have been given to the Ukrainians. Finally, we cannot forget the international bystanders, journalists and Western businessmen. So, fearing that the Soviets could cancel their visas had they not been regime-friendly, journalists refrained from mentioning any negativity and instead introduced positivity. This earned them luxurious treatment and special privileges. Businessmen also feared that the cancellation of their business contracts with the Soviet state. At that time, commerce with the Soviets were key to the industrialization of the Western world. And concluding our presentation, after the Holodomor Genocide, Ukraine has never been the same. The collectivization and Ukrainian oppression was an intricately designed plan to destroy Ukrainian nationalism and to seize all power for the Soviet use, which resulted to an estimate of 3.5 to 5 million deaths. Now, these are some references we used while we did our project. And the last slide is the proof of the learning resources assistance we also used. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a good day.